Hi, good afternoon. I started my journey about 35 years ago when I was shunned by my family, ostracized by the society for being who I am. I didn't know that time who I am, what am I, where am I going, what should I be doing with my life. This self realization came to me at the age of 27, late, but not too late. The reason? Because I had been battered and hammered in all ways possible. Shunned from family, as I said, a broken relationship of 14 years left me completely emotionally drained out. Didn't know what, how, where, when, and the big question was why. But I rose like a phoenix from my ashes, decided that I had to go on and make a difference. Because the nomenclatures that I was called, I didn't associate, I didn't recognize them. I found them constantly abusive, harassing. And it always was questioning me at why. So, this process that I took at 27 was to empower myself so that I can be a voice for so many who were voiceless for whatever reasons. Reasons can be anything. So, to gain my self confidence and self esteem, I started looking up at things that I did not know. Today, you have Google, but when I was growing up, there was no Google. We had something very wonderful which everybody probably uses today on their Google. It's called Webster's Dictionary. I looked up the word, again didn't recognize. Why? Because it is a medical term. And I was not sick. I didn't have a disease. Then came Yahoo. It came with a very international perspective, something that I did not recognize or understand because there was no Indian perspective. The only Indian perspective was I am a criminal. For what? For expressing my emotions? Yes. Being alone, I had huge amount of friends, but I found one true friend among many who was my support and my pillar. Going through all this, the first thing I realized is I need to break the stigma. I want you to look at this slide. Would you sacrifice your child at birth if you came to know he was a homosexual? Don't know. So, questioning homophobia is very important. Would your best friend's touch lose his innocence if you found out he was a homosexual? Would you put a mask? We've seen a lot of cultural things today on Indian culture to avoid homosexuality. So, again, questioning homophobia is very important. Before doing that, what I need to talk about is the Article 14 of the Indian Constitution guarantees me the right to equality. I'm supposed to be equal among all of you. Article 15 prohibits any kind of discrimination based on religion, caste, sex, birth. Article 21 gives me the right to privacy. Nobody can interfere in my life, but it has always been interfered. Article 12 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights Act 1948 states no one shall be subjected to arbitrary interference with his privacy, family, home, correspondence, nor to attract upon his honor and reputation. Okay. But this was not happening to me. It was all extremely confusing for a layman. I was a layman those days. So, rights and laws made me an abomination in the eyes of the society. in spite and despite the pillars of our Indian Constitution giving me these rights, I was still a abomination, criminal, pervert, and many more wonderful words. So during that journey, I decided one of the things that I had to do with breaking of stigma was development and understanding of social construct of the society, the legal perspectives. While doing so, I realized that nothing and nothing can work better than dispelling homophobia. What is homophobia? My definition: a mental health construct developed by the society that has fears of homosexual person. With a lot of effort, with help from a lot of social scientists and media people, we developed this one particular image, which says visible social evils, non-visible psychosocial evils, hidden psychosocial evils. So in visible, we immediately move towards violence, blackmail, unfriendly laws. We couldn't at those days seek any kind of sexual health benefits from the medical fraternity. Non-visible for me, the key thing was, the fact was, a lot of people that I knew were committing suicides. We hear the number of people who commit suicide in India, but we do not know why they commit that number. Forced, unhappy marriages. It provokes physical, mental, and sexual abuse. In hidden psychosocial evils, identity crisis. So I have an identity crisis. Because of who I am and the way I'm verbally abused, I have low self-esteem. There's trauma associated with all that, which takes me to self-destructive behavior. I develop something called internal homophobia. I am scared to even talk about it, even mention it. But this heteronormative, phallic-centric society demands men to be masculine. What is masculinity? Social expectations of being a man. So what is the true definition of being a man? He must have masculinity. He should be masculine in his behavior, attributes which boys and men should have. Masculinity is constructed and defined by society, history, and politics, rather than being a biological driven. Same is applicable to femininity. He has to repress his human side and capacity for affection. Can't show love, can't express it. But if a well-groomed man who goes for a pedicure, manicure, to the salon, dresses up immaculately, he's called a metrosexual. Hides his feelings. And men without any kind of facial hair, body hair, soft, thin, is not manly, because that is not what the construct is. The gruff look, the buff body, the toning of your voice, hi babes, is important. But we forget the tenet of yin and yang, which is within each person. That leaves us to think. As a masculine person, are you happy? Are you satisfied with falsifications? So today when we work in the sphere of sexuality, gender and human rights, it is imperative to think of psychosocial issues of well-being as holistically. And hence we pose a question to all. How many of us, please reflect on this, how many of us have a productive day after being emotionally fulfilled? So, why are we here today? To see if we all can understand, accept desire. We've seen these three morning mudras, everything. Romance and love, urge, sex as emotions amongst consenting adults in a private space and respecting that space. So, do we accept, understand, and respect? If we do, then what is that we understand? Two key aspects. That's where our life is pretty much revolved. Though we do not give it too much of credence, but the fact is, we are like a yo-yo around it. Physical pleasure. You may do it for 2 minutes, you may do it for 1 hour, but you do it. Psychosocial intimacy. Two intrinsic criteria of sex and sexuality. Fact is, sexuality is not black and white. It is gray, and the most important thing is, it's like a prism. When a white light passes, it delivers a rainbow. So reflection of diversity is very, very important to understand. Liberty, equality, fraternity, sexuality. 4 pillars that I would like to emphasize. Our ancient scriptures has talked about what people do. We have to have ahimsa. Kama Sutra and Khajuraho. Absolutely everybody knows about it. And erotic literature and erotic temple carvings, which has all kinds of sexual acts. But we have become myopic and do not discuss sex and sexuality. It is imperative that you love yourself, love all beings, and you will love God. That's what we hear. The soul has no sex. We saw that today morning. Body is immaterial whether the attachment is for a male or a female. In spiritual sense, one of the basic tenets of our Indian culture, where we are taught to believe in one soul and not in the physical being. We have tremendous diversity, sexual customs, major consequences of erotic beliefs and practices. That's where it all boils down to gender and sex. As per United Nations language, I would like to quote them here. Gender refers to the characteristics of women, men, girls, and boys that are socially constructed. This includes norms, behaviors, and roles associated with being a woman, man, girl, or boy, as well as a relationship with each other. Gender interacts but differs from sex. Different biological and physiological characters defines that. What is gender identity? The World Health Organization, WHO, refers to persons' deeply felt internal and individual experience of gender, which may or may not correspond to first personal physiology or designated sex at birth. Being a part of a progressive culture, one really wonders about the roots of our current misconceptions. Sorry. One of the most visible, I purposely retain this side, is Tritiya Linga, the third gender, an umbrella term for hijras and many others such, which is listed on the right side. This has been there since ancient times. The Honorable Supreme Court made a judgment that held that fundamental rights are available to everyone. And court ruled that transgenders have the right to be recognized as third genders in manners necessary or areas concerned. The fourth further held that hospitals and other sanitation and healthcare facilities should provide separate medical care to these people, along with implementation of various welfare schemes, and they should be considered as a backward class. And third gender got the recognition. Men who sell sex, male whores, male prostitutes, a completely hitherto unknown, invisible group which is highly prevalent in India. Just shown you the circle of what they are and who they are. Their issues are migration, debt, bondage, marriage of female siblings, homelessness, lack of money, and double stigma of being a homosexual and a prostitute. No man, no person is immune from being a potential rape victim, and depending the circumstances and scenarios they find themselves in. A circle of sexual violence. I will come back to this again. Some of the criminal laws that affect us. Everybody knows about Section 377 of the IPC. It was highly publicized. Everybody talked about something that whoever has carnal intercourse against the order of nature. I want to leave it there. 375 and 376 of the IPC. Rape, as I said earlier. This is possible to anybody. But if I am raped by a man or a woman, I cannot go to court. People will think, why will a man get married? Raped. Man gets raped. There are enough cases already there, but no succor under the Indian law in the IPC. So where do you go to court? Who do you say I was raped? Does a man have the possibility of saying this? It affects men and boys, women and girls, the elderly and the very young, people with disability. There was a case in Mumbai which was highly publicized about a patient who was raped by the male nurse. We have heard of many cases recently where babies have been raped. This is all in your media. Section 354 is for outraging a modesty of a woman. What about my modesty? If it is outraged, where do I go? Think. Section 509 is that harassment at workplace. Female-centric law after the Vishaka judgment. What if my female boss is sexually harassing me? Or some junior or my colleague for some reason falsifies a complaint? What do I do? Where do I go? Think. Then for everybody, general community, people who are in live-in relationships, want to be as partners, as friends, this affects them. It's just not the laws for the gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender community. Employees Provident Fund Scheme, Workmen Compensation Act, Employee State Insurance Act, insurance laws, that is your Insurance Act, Public Liability Insurance Act, requires your blood relative only. Within all this, one of the key paperwork for some reason is whether your blood relative has signed on a consent form giving you access to healthcare. Today we are all traveling, we are studying, we are doing different things in life. Who will sign for me in case of my problem? We need to seriously look at this because this affects people's lives. Since we are traveling for work, education, etc. Housing law is that it has to be only for a married couple. No blood relative can access loan. We really need to unbound sexuality. It's absolutely necessary. If I have been able to share some information, and if you have been able to retain it 1%, I humbly urge you to disseminate even 0.5% of that 1%. And believe me, there will be a huge change that we all can affect, just not the gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender communities, but in general, where we all can be happy. I thank you for your time and the patience to listening to me. Have a great day.